Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are focusing our analytical lens on a book that, well, it's pretty hard to ignore. Colleen Hoover's 2016 novel, It Ends With Us.
Yeah, that one. It's really something.
It really is. If you track book trends at all, you know this one just blew up. It's more than a bestseller. It feels like a cultural event almost, especially with its resurgence on places like Book Talk. It just has this incredible staying power, and now it's even heading towards a major film adaptation.
Right. And our source material for this deep dive, it's basically this really extensive review. It tries to figure out the why.
Well, exactly.
Why this specific contemporary romance or drama from 2016 resonated so deeply. Our mission today is kind of getting past just the hype and figuring out what Hoover actually did thematically, structurally, to make it stick around.
Okay, so let's just baseline the facts for everyone listening. We're talking Colleen Hoover, It Ends With Us, published back in 2016. Genre is sort of contemporary romance, but also drama.
Heavy on the drama.
Oh, yeah. And the rating is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Our sources consistently point to like a 4.8 out of 5 average. That's huge. Readers clearly connect with it intensely.
Definitely.
So let's unpack the basic story setup for you, the listener. We start with our protagonist, Lily Bloom. She moves to Boston. She's got this goal, new life, open her own flower shop, starting fresh.
The classic fresh start trope.
Right. And then she meets Ryle Kincaid. He's a neurosurgeon, very confident, seems. Well, the source material calls him charismatic and passionate. Initially, he looks like the perfect guy.
Yeah, that initial setup is, it's almost deliberately simple, isn't it? Like classic whirlwind romance.
Just feels like it.
But the sources, they pivot really quickly to the complications because Lily's not just looking forward, she's dragging this heavy past behind her.
Right.
Specifically trauma around her father, who was abusive, and also memories of her first love, this guy named Corrigan.
Okay, so that setup immediately tells you Ryle probably isn't the perfect dream guy he seems. How does the story start making that shift from romance to, well, intense drama?
Well, according to the review, it's meant to be jarring and realistic, actually. Ryle's darker side, his flaws, they don't just sort of gradually appear. They erupt, often triggered by stress, maybe jealousy. And boom, Lily's suddenly facing patterns that feel terrifyingly familiar from her childhood. That's the turn. The story stops being just about finding love and starts being about recognizing danger.
And survival, maybe.
Yeah, survival and recognition. And then the plot cleverly brings Atlas back, her first love, the one who represented, like, safety and kindness back then. His return forces Lily to see the contrast, right, between the volatility with Ryle and this memory, this possibility of something gentler. So the whole book shifts, really. It becomes less about finding love and more about figuring out this brutal cycle of abuse, trauma, love, and can you forgive? Should you?
Wow. Okay, that sets up the core conflict perfectly. Which leads us right into the themes. Our sources argue this is why the book lasts. It's not shying away from the tough stuff.
Exactly. The absolute central theme, the one that lifts it way beyond just a typical romance, is its look at domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And the review really stresses that Hoover handles it with, quote, raw honesty. But what's maybe more important is that it doesn't just paint Ryle as some kind of cartoon villain.
Okay, how so?
Well, the analysis points out that the book refuses to romanticize the abuse itself, which is critical.
Right.
Instead, it focuses on humanizing Lily's emotional state, her conflict. It explores that really confusing, messy reality of loving someone who also hurts you deeply. It gets into the victim's mindset.
Yeah.
The hope for change, the excuses, the trauma bond that makes leaving so hard. That complexity, that's what hit home for so many readers, it seems.
I think that complexity is key for the conversations it started.
Right.
Because it's easy to judge from outside.
Right.
But the book makes you sit inside Lily's head, especially when she thinks about her own mother's experience.
Yeah, exactly. It forces empathy.
Which brings us straight to the title. It ends with us. That's such a powerful phrase. What did the sources say about its significance?
Oh, the title is seen as structurally crucial. It's basically Lily's big declaration at the end.
Right.
The analysis frames it as her recognizing she won't continue the pattern of violence she grew up witnessing. By choosing to end things, she's not just leaving Ryle. She's breaking that chain of generational trauma in her family.
That takes immense strength.
Huge courage, yeah. And the narrative doesn't frame it as like a sad failure of a romance. It's framed as this massive act of self-empowerment, of hope even. It sort of provides this blueprint almost for breaking those cycles, which is incredibly powerful for readers who might see echoes in their own lives or families.
So looking at the emotional core, then, it really boils down to this tension, love versus pain. The sources talk about this tough realization that sometimes self-respect means walking away from the person you love. Can we dig into the resilience aspect of that?
Yeah, the narrative builds Lily's transformation really carefully.
Okay.
Her journey is about realizing that love, or what feels like love, isn't always safe,
Yeah.
and that those two things have to align.
Okay.
For the reader, watching Lily go from being the daughter of a victim to becoming a woman who prioritizes her own safety and her child's safety, that's presented as real emotional growth, maturity.
Yeah.
The sources praise the book for making it clear that real growth often hurts. It means letting go of a love that's ultimately destroying you. That's the resilience it's really championing.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the writing itself. It's easy to dismiss something super popular as maybe simplistic writing, but the sources actually describe Hoover's style as simple, emotional, and deeply immersive. How does she pull that off? What are the techniques?
Well, one key thing the review highlights is the dual narrative structure.
Ah, right, the diary entry.
Exactly. Hoover mixes the present-day story, all the drama with Ryle, with Lily's old teenage diary entries. And this isn't just like a standard flashback.
How is it different?
It gives you this immediate, really intimate first-person window into Lily's past. You read about her dad, the fears she felt, but also her relationship with Atlas back then.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect is pretty powerful. It means you don't just understand her current situation intellectually. You feel the weight of her history. So when Ryle's dark side comes out, you're right there with Lily, feeling that echo of the past because you just read about it in her own words. It cranks up the emotional tension.
And the dialogue, the source mentioned that too.
Yeah, described as authentic. It helps drive that emotional reality, keeps you totally locked into Lily's perspective, her stress, her confusion.
Okay, that dual perspective totally feeds into the characters.
Mm.
Let's talk about Ryle again. It seems crucial that he's realistic, but the book doesn't, justify his actions.
Mm-hmm.
How did the sources say Hoover walked that line? It sounds tricky.
It is tricky. The analysis notes that Ryle is genuinely shown as charming, smart, successful, things that make him attractive to Lily, and probably to the reader at first, too. And crucially, the book shows his remorse after an abusive incident. That whole cycle of violence, that apology, then back to being charming, it's depicted realistically. That stops him from just being a flat, evil character.
But it doesn't excuse him.
Exactly. The sources really stress this. His own trauma history is revealed later, but Hoover never uses it as a get-out-of-jail-free card for his violence. It explains where the behavior might stem from, but it absolutely does not justify it. And that nuance is vital for the book's message about abuse.
Okay. And then contrasting Ryle, we have Atlas. He plays a really important symbolic role, right?
Absolutely. Atlas is basically the opposite of Ryle in every way that matters. He represents genuine kindness, safety, consistency, support.
He's a safe harbor.
Kind of, yeah. His presence gives Lily and the reader that essential contrast. It shows what healthy love and partnership actually look like. Love built on respect, not fear. You need Atlas in the story for Lily to fully understand what she's losing by staying with Ryle and what she deserves instead.
Right. And to sort of pull all that intense emotional reality together, there's that one quote. It seems like everyone who reads the book remembers it. Our source review highlighted it too.
Oh, I think I know the one you mean.
Just because someone hurts you doesn't mean you can simply stop loving them. It's not a person's actions that hurt the most. It's the love. If there was no love attached to the action, the pain would be a little easier to bear.
Yeah, that hits hard, doesn't it? That quote is basically the thesis statement for why leaving abusive situations is so incredibly complicated in real life, and why the book became such a touchstone. It validates those conflicting feelings that victims have, that messy, painful reality.
And that emotional depth, that validation, seems to be what really fueled its journey into becoming this global phenomenon, especially the book talk explosion.
Totally. It wasn't just seen as a fun read. It's social relevance, the raw emotion. It created these online communities where people were actually discussing these heavy themes, processing them together.
Yeah, it really did seem to transition from just being popular fiction to having this genuine real-world impact. You saw it sparking conversations about domestic violence, about self-worth, especially among younger readers who found it through social media.
It opened doors for those talks.
And that popularity naturally leads to mainstream attention. The news about the film adaptation, Blake Lively as Lily, Justin Baldoni as Ryle, that just amplified its reach even more, bringing the conversation to an even wider audience.
Definitely pushed it further into the mainstream. But, as we promised, a good deep dive needs the full picture. Our source material did offer a balanced assessment. The strengths are clear. The emotional punch, the honest portrayal, the accessible writing, that inspiring message.
Right, those are undeniable.
But the review also pointed out some weaknesses or potential issues. For some readers, especially those with personal histories of abuse, certain scenes were flagged as potentially very triggering.
Understandable.
Yeah. And structurally. The source felt maybe a couple of the plot twists were a little predictable, especially for seasoned readers of the genre. And maybe some secondary characters could have been fleshed out a bit more to make Lily's world feel even richer.
Okay, fair points. So when we distill all that analysis, what's the final verdict here?
Well, the conclusion from our sources is pretty clear. It ends with Us really succeeds because it's so much more than just a love story. It's fundamentally a story about making incredibly difficult choices, about finding strength you didn't know you had, and about the possibility of breaking these really painful, destructive cycles. It earns that high rating because it delivers this emotional, realistic story that leaves you with a lasting message about self-worth, about safety, about choosing yourself.
So listening to this, you now have the key knowledge. You understand the narrative structure, those dual timelines, the power of the themes like generational trauma, the complex characters, and really why this book continues to dominate conversations years later. That feels like a successful deep dive.
I think so. And maybe, connecting this to the bigger picture, the book does such a good job showing how trauma complicates that decision to leave, to break a cycle. So the question maybe for you, the listener, to think about is, when fiction lays out the difference between love and safety so clearly, how does recognizing that in a story help us maybe see or talk about those same complexities in our own lives, in our communities?
That's a powerful thought.
Like, what new conversations can we start, not just about the story's ending, but about real-world empowerment, using fiction as that starting point?
That is definitely something worth carrying with you. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.